All right, let's journey back in time down the Nile River. We're going to go way past the famous pyramids of Giza, deep into a land that was home to an equally brilliant but, you know, often overlooked empire.
For thousands of years, Egypt has totally captured our imagination. But they weren't the only superpower on the block. Nope. South of their border, another kingdom rose, fell, and rose again. And get this, it was a kingdom that would one day turn the tables and conquer Egypt itself. We're talking about the Kingdom of Kush. It was a civilization centered in a region we call Nubia, which today covers parts of Sudan and southern Egypt. And this wasn't just some minor neighbor, okay? This was a powerhouse with a history that stretches over 3 millennia. Now, to really wrap your head around a history this long, it helps to break it down a bit. Historians usually divide Kush's story into 3 major phases, and each one is centered around a different capital city. You've got the early Kerma period, the super powerful Napatan period, and the culturally rich Meroitic period. So let's start at the beginning. The city of Kerma, that was the first major power center for the Kushites. It's where they really started to forge their own unique identity, and they got strong enough to be a serious challenger to their northern neighbors. This rivalry kind of defined their early relationship, which ended with Egypt's new kingdom conquering and annexing Kush for a few centuries. But the story is far from over. Not even close. After centuries living under Egyptian rule, Kush didn't just get its independence back. It came back with a vengeance. And this leads us to one of the most incredible turnarounds in all of ancient history. Just let that sink in for a second. The former subjects became the masters. The colonized became the kings. It's an absolutely stunning reversal of fortune that completely reshaped the entire Nile Valley. So how on earth did they pull it off? Well, they did it during that Napatan period, giving rise to what historians now call the Black Pharaohs. These were the incredibly powerful Kushite kings of Egypt's 25th dynasty. They just swept north from their capital at Napata, conquered a fractured Egypt, and for the first time in centuries, unified the entire Nile Valley under a single crown. And this dynasty had some truly remarkable leaders. I mean, it was King Piye who led the initial invasion and declared himself the one true pharaoh. He was followed by guys like Shabaka and the mighty Taharka, who ruled over this unified kingdom at the absolute peak of its power and influence. But their reign in Egypt just couldn't last forever. A new and frankly terrifying power was rising in the east, the Assyrian Empire. After a series of pretty brutal clashes, the Assyrian army, which had superior iron weapons, managed to push the Kushites out of Egypt, forcing them to retreat south, back to their Nubian homeland. But being forced out of Egypt wasn't the end for Kush. Actually, it sparked a new beginning. They moved their capital further south to the city of Meroe, and that kicked off what would become their true golden age, a time when they forged an identity that was uniquely their own. So why Meroe? Well, this was a brilliant strategic move. For one, moving south put some distance between them and any Egyptian or foreign meddling. It also put them smack in the middle of key African trade routes and, this is crucial, near massive deposits of iron ore. It might have also been a political power play, to reduce the influence of the old priests back in Napata. And Meroe absolutely flourished. It forged this truly independent identity. They developed their own written language, the Meroitic script, which, by the way, we're still working to fully decipher today. They became an industrial powerhouse. You can still see the vast slag heaps from all their iron smelting. And their whole political structure was different, featuring these powerful ruling queens known as the Kandakes. And listen, these Kandakes were not just figureheads. Take Uranus. When the brand new Roman Empire tried to push south into her territory, she didn't just defend. She went on the attack, personally leading her armies into Roman-held Egypt. She fought the might of Rome to a standstill and actually secured a favorable peace treaty. What an absolutely incredible leader. This unique identity is just perfectly symbolized by their pyramids. Yep, the Kushites built pyramids, but they made them their own, way steeper and narrower than the Egyptian ones you're thinking of. And while Egypt has a few dozen famous ones, the Kushites built over 200 at Meroe alone, and they kept that tradition going for centuries after it had stopped in Egypt. But like all great empires, the golden age of Meroe eventually came to an end. After surviving for millennia, this incredible civilization just began to fade, leading to one of history's really big questions. I mean, seriously, what could possibly topple a kingdom that had stood for 3,000 years? Well, like with most things in history, there wasn't one single cause. It was more like a perfect storm of problems, both internal and external, that all hit around the 4th century CE. It really was a complex collapse. You had a new rival, the Kingdom of Aksum, getting super powerful to the east. At the same time, international trade routes were shifting, basically bypassing Meroe and strangling its economy. It's also likely that centuries of all that iron production led to massive deforestation and environmental damage. And on top of all that, nomadic tribes were constantly putting pressure on their borders.
And this right here, this really illustrates the final act. As Kush's power was fading, the kingdom of Aksum over in modern-day Ethiopia was just hitting its stride. Aksum seized control of the new lucrative trade routes and was expanding its military. There's even an inscription left by the Aksumite king Ezana where he brags about conquering and destroying Meroe. That pretty much marks the definitive shift in who was the new boss in the region.
So after the final fall of Meroe, the once mighty kingdom didn't just vanish into thin air. Its territory broke apart into a few smaller kingdoms, like Nabatea, Makuria, and Alodia. These new successor states ended up adopting Christianity, which kicked off the next major chapter of Nubian history.
So when we look back, the sheer longevity is just staggering. Over 3,000 years. Just think about that. That's longer than the Roman Empire, longer than ancient Greece, and it was happening at the same time as almost the entire history of pharaonic Egypt.
And that's really the ultimate legacy of Kush. It wasn't just some Egyptian copycat. It was a powerful, unique African civilization that, sure, it absorbed influences from its neighbor, but it blended them into something completely new, something distinctly its own.
You know, the story of Kush is such a powerful reminder that the version of history many of us learn is, well, it's incomplete. There are other empires, other pharaohs, and other incredible stories that are just buried by time, waiting for us to uncover them. It really makes you wonder, what else is out there?
For fun and adventures? Join our family quickly on the Deuce Nui channel. Click the subscribe button and activate the bell.